Welcome friends to another r/prorevenge video. So I was checking my channel statistics and only one of you isn't subscribed. So if you're that one person, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That said, our first story of the day is by W. Fogel 97. School expelled me for mom's anger. We sued the county and caused a reform. So I have a really bad leg. I've had 13 surgeries, long story, and had just started at a new school. After the first 3 weeks, I had to go in for another procedure on my leg. Not that big a deal to me, I've been here before. Upon my return, I had documentation of my restrictions as well as special amenities that were required. The big three were that I needed extra time to get from class to class, must have someone to escort me, and needed unrestricted access to the elevator. All of these got me recurring problems, such as constant harassment by teachers and security about my being in the halls during class time and why my cousin was out too. He was filling the role as my escort, as I have anxiety problems and we had the same classes. These first two were annoying but easy enough to deal with. The real issue was the elevator, as I was told multiple times that for security issues I couldn't have a personal key, due to it sharing the same functionality with the interior door keys. I would never have any issues with this, as I was told there would always be someone on the same floor as my classes to open the elevator for me. This, of course, was untrue about 75% of the time. The lack of elevator access meant that I was always stuck in the halls when other students were going to class, and was consistently late due to having to wait for someone to come by and open the door for the elevator. This also meant that I would sometimes be stuck waiting through the entire lunch period, and due to my absences, couldn't afford to simply go to lunch after the fact. After about 3 weeks of this, I was tired of not getting to eat lunch, so I did one of the stupidest things I could have attempted and tried to use the stairs. For context, I wasn't on crutches, I was on a full-blown walker. About halfway down to the landing, I fell hard. As lunch was letting out, one of my friends found me, got someone to help pick me up, and carried me to the office. Another of my friends went to find my other cousin. The one who normally escorted me wasn't there due to being sick, so I was without escort because I couldn't bear the thought of, gasp, a stranger escorting me, who, when getting to the office, managed to get me calmed down enough to give them my mother's number. Now, my mother is quite hot-tempered, but can keep a level head normally. When she heard I fell, she was there in record time. When she got there, she immediately asked what happened. I told her I didn't want to miss lunch again, so I tried to use the stairs. Big mistake, as that set off a Tsar Bomba-sized explosive. She immediately turned around and demanded for the principal and VP to get their butts in here ASAP. As soon as the principal and VP walked in, she started berating them in a fashion not suitable for most adults to hear, let alone kids. When the VP made an offhand remark about my condition, my mother was swarmed by local sheriffs that provided security for the school's entrances and office as she physically went after the VP. We were escorted out, and after looking at the file and realizing my cousin and I had the same address, they figured out that I didn't actually live there. Now, my grandmother's address was listed as she was looking after me after I left school up until around 8 p.m. She was also raising my cousin after an issue between her and my aunt. They used this as grounds to expel me and told her, I can be some other school's problem now. I was then enrolled at the school near my house and had to have yet another surgery to repair the damage that was done as a result of my fall and redo the work of my previous procedure. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers as well as my doctors, and my parents were moving forward with a lawsuit naming the VP, principal, and the county school board. We were contacted by a lawyer who had won multiple cases against our school board, some of which went to the state Supreme Court, and he told us he would take our case pro bono. He was getting tired of going against the board and thought a case like this would be what it took to try and fix their stuff. Fast forward 9 months, and I was walking out of court with a settlement to cover all of my procedures, as well as a written confirmation that the school would be going through a complete administrative overhaul, and that the principal and VP would be let go and have their administrative credentials revoked in our state. My new school was let known day one my medical requirements and my need for a personal elevator key by the superintendent and the head of the State Board of Education. You would think that the school would just go ahead, get the elevator rekeyed, and made sure that they could accommodate for students of any need. For those of you that went to public school, would you say your parents would have stood up to the administration the way OPs did? Or did they have a little bit more of a laid-back approach to it? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Kirorosu, A Dangerous Game. I do have many stories peppered throughout my life that I want to share, but this was the first one that came to mind. This one has to do with my childhood and dealing with a psychotic and racist aunt and uncle. When I was a child, I was often assaulted and bullied for being a mixed-blood kid, mulatto, by both my own family and kids in school. There's many things that my aunt and uncle did to me and got away with, which I'll share the highlights of later. This story, however, is not one of those. My uncle was the alpha tormentor between the two. Both my aunt and uncle still lived with my grandparents, so there was no way to avoid them because I had to go to my grandparents' house after school while my dad was still at work. My uncle liked to play games with me in order to turn me into a fearless pit dog, as he put it, when I asked him one day why he was tormenting me so much. When he said that, the fact that he was being completely honest as well as smiling about it, I decided right then and there that this man was my enemy and would have to deal with him accordingly. If he wanted a pit dog, he was going to get one. After overcoming my shock of his honest answer, I said, "Fang you, uncle, just fang you." One of the games that he loved to play was chasing me down the road to my grandparents' house, which felt like an honest attempt to literally run me over. He'd always do this as I was walking home to my grandparents' house after school. Luckily, most times he ended up just chasing me off the road. The game started like this. He would stop his truck at the end of the road that my grandparents' place was on and rev the engine of his truck 3 times. That was the signal that the game was about to begin. After the 3rd rev, he would hit the gas and come screaming down the road toward me. I would have to leap off the road to avoid being ran over. After at least a couple of months of dealing with this, I had enough. I was tired of feeling afraid of walking down that street. I thought it over for a while before I decided I would get revenge. On the days that I wasn't being chased, I started to count how many steps it took to get to an old stump on the side of the road that was hidden by briars. I'd walk backwards just so I could eye the distance between the end of that road and the stump so I would know when to run. 17 steps. It would take 17 steps from the time he would start roaring down that road at me to get to that stump. The day finally came about a couple weeks later. When I heard his truck, I wasn't afraid anymore. I was angry. As per normal, he revved his engine 3 times, then gunned it around the corner. I waited until he was close enough before I ran as fast as I could up the side of the road and behind the stump, throwing my backpack into a deer trail I could jump into in case my plan failed, then quickly turned towards the stump and the oncoming truck bearing down on me. As expected, he followed me up the side of the road, too fixed on me to pay attention to where he was going. The next few moments were beautiful. The briars parted like the Red Sea, and to my delight, I saw his eyes go wide as he realized what he was about to smash into. He yanked the steering wheel to the left, his front right tire going over the stump, which launched him into the air. As he flew past me, I could see the look of terror on his face, and grinning madly, I began to shout insults at him as his truck nearly flipped in midair. Instead of flipping, the truck roughly came back down on 4 wheels, and he continued down the road to my grandparents' house and parked in the gravel driveway. I grabbed my backpack, ran up the trail, and hid. I didn't come out until after dark when my dad came to get me. I knew the sound of my dad's car, a Datsun B210, so when I heard him coming up the road, I immediately came out, waved him down, and quickly jumped into the passenger seat. My dad asked me concerned as to why I was out there. At first, I just kept telling him over and over that we needed to just go straight home and under no circumstances go to my grandparents' house. When my dad kept asking why, I finally told him everything that happened. Without another word, he turned the car around, silently fuming, and drove us home. I don't know if my dad talked to my uncle after what happened, but what I do know is that game never happened again. That game, at least. I think what upsets me the most about this story is the fact that nobody was willing to do anything. The aunt and the grandma were just complacent enough to let that happen. Obviously, the aunt took part in it too, but I just don't understand how people can know that there's an uncle trying to run the kid over, or at least scare the crap out of them by faking they're going to do it, and not try to put a stop to it somehow. I feel bad for OP. Our next story is by your girl L Bell, the story of the time my dad stole my money and gave it to the church. This happened about 10 years ago, right after my 9th birthday. I got a lot of money, and I was saving it for a family vacation so I could get myself some gifts for Christmas for my family, and I kept it safe in my mustache wallet and my sock drawer. I know it's tacky, but it was 2011. One of these days, my mom was out of cash and she needed $20 to give to the man who delivered her medication. So I took $20 but happened to leave the wallet on top of my vanity. 3 days later, my mom paid me back, so I went to put the money back in my wallet, but when I opened it, it was completely empty. Even the change was gone. I had about $120 in there as a mix from this birthday and previous other birthdays and Christmases, and just my grandparents being nice. There was no way I could have spent it, so someone must have stole it. I showed my mother, and she was pissed. First, she thought it was one of my brothers, so she checked through their wallets to make sure it wasn't them, and to their surprise, neither of them didn't. So then she called up my aunt to see if it was my cousins, as she had stole money from me before, another story for another day. The mother checked, and lo and behold, it wasn't her either. So then she asked my dad if he would know where it is, and he said, "Oh, I took it and gave it to tithings. Since she has money, it's time for her to pay it." For context, my dad is a devout, born-again Catholic who went to church every Sunday and gave 10% of his money to the church every week, even in times we were strapped for cash. When I heard him say this, I absolutely lost it, yelling about how he had no right to take my money without permission, that it was supposed to only be 10%, and he took all of it. How I don't even believe in it, so there's no point of me giving my money to them, and how him stealing it is a sin in itself and breaking one of the 10 commandments. We argued for about 15 minutes or so until he said, "Fine, if you want the money, I'll give it back, but the money has to go to a charity. You get to choose, but it must be a good cause." The next day we went to the bank and he gave me the $120 and said, "Remember, this has to go to a good cause." When I got home, my mom and I got on the computer and looked up charities on a website that says how much the donation goes to the cause, just to make sure my money wouldn't go to waste. And one of them caught my eye, the Trevor Project. So I read the description of how it's a charity for LGBTQ+ people who've been kicked out of their homes by unsupportive parents. Since I was just learning their sexualities other than straight and becoming curious myself, I decided that this would be the perfect charity. Especially considering my dad's staunch Catholicism made him strictly against gay marriage. My mom approved, and I gave her the money, and she donated it. About a week or two later, my dad asked me which charity I chose, and with a wide smile on my face, I told him it was the Trevor Project. He didn't know what it was, so he took out his phone and Googled it, and when he learned what it was, he absolutely lost it. Yelling and screaming about the sin I committed. My mom, hearing the ruckus, decided to check in and see what all the noise was about. My dad told her the issue, and she smirked and told him, "Remember, you said she's the one who picks the charity, and I researched it and it gives almost all of its money to those kids in need. It's a good charity." My dad, unable to argue against that, stormed off in a huff and drove away to cool off, peeling out of the driveway. My mom walked into her room and gave the money back to me in cash, saying she did donate but she used her own money because she believed it wasn't fair that I had to use my own. Let's just say my family all got great gifts that Christmas, except for my dad, who got a rainbow ring that's too small. The one takeaway from this is that mom is a great mom. Not only did they support OP's beliefs, support the charity they personally chose, they also realized that it's not okay that they have to give away all of their money. They never had any say in the matter. So after all that, still being able to hand them the money back and saying, "I got your back," that must have felt great. And our final story of the day is by Little Miss Bunny Woman. "Hey girl, can I get your number?" I was talking with my friend today and I told her this story and I thought it would fit and I want to share it. I was doing a little shopping at a small clothing store in a mall not too far away from home. They sell really nice clothing at smaller sizes. I'm super small and it's nice to be able to get the kinds of clothing that I like that aren't too big. Well, unfortunately, I catch the eye of this guy who comes over to talk to me. He's like, "Hey, how you doing today?" And I say I'm good. He was trying the usual try to pick up a girl stuff, and I'm really just not interested. Then he really starts to get aggressive about it. I even try to shut him down right away with, "No thank you, I'm sorry, I'm not interested," but he just won't leave me alone. He does the common, "Baby girl, let's go get something to eat." "Oh, baby girl," it was creepy. "Oh, can I get your number, baby girl?" He finally asked the question, "So baby girl, how old are you?" I looked at him with a straight face, almost dead expression. "I'm 13. I looked at him with a straight face and almost dead expression and said, "I'm 13. The dude's face almost goes as white as a ghost. I've never seen someone back up and out of a situation so fast in my life. For reference, I'm almost 30 and I guess that's a power move only us super tiny girls can pull. I'm also covered in tattoos, so on a normal day if I was in a short sleeve shirt or a dress, it would have been a dead giveaway. I guess one benefit is that's the power of a baby face, or just a small tiny stature. Bottom line though, it sucks that has to be the method to get out of this situation. And in some cases, it probably wouldn't even be enough. Can people just not be creepy, please? Thank you. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.